Thank you so much, Zuza, and thank you, Lucas, for the invitation of having me here. It's such an honor, and I'm also looking forward for a very fruitful panel and discussions as well, as this is definitely one of the most pressing topics of the modern time. I will today present you some food for thought to this topic. I will tell you basically two stories. I will tell you what I found out in my investigations when in 2014, 6 years ago, I started to investigate the then new phenomenon of Russian information warfare, the social media propaganda trolls. And then I will tell how that investigation changed my life for good, it seems. And just a little bit about my background. I work with a Finnish broadcasting company, Yle, Yleisradio. And as this session is about trust, I have to make some pro-Yleisradio PR because we have an incredible trust rate, like North Korean style. Something like 91% of our own audiences trust in us and our news. So we're doing something right, and I wish that I can share some of that in this panel as well. But now I will focus on the Russian trolls and the attackers who are trying to destabilize the information environment and thus our societies using fake media and social media bots and trolls. But so I will now also show small presentation as I go so you can see vivid examples. Let me know if you can't see or if something is missing. Now you should see full screen. All right, it shows, excellent. So in 2014, I wanted to know how are social media propaganda from Russia used against ordinary citizens of Finland. We also have Russian speakers in Finland, and at that time we knew because a year earlier, 2013, really brave Russian journalists had uncovered this propaganda office from St. Petersburg, where young kids were paid quite a good salary to pretend as real people online, to build fake profiles online, and to spread pro-Russian, pro-Putin propaganda using those platforms. So I was worried, maybe this also influences Finnish people. So I started a crowdsourcing investigation. I asked people, my audiences, to help me investigate. How are the trolls attacking, in which channels, and specifically how have people reacted to these troll activities. So I published one article, and I instantly became targeted for a Russian fake news campaign. Here in these screenshots, you can see that I am being smeared in several, about 10 different Russian fake news sites. And in these fake news, I'm being smeared that I am not a journalist actually at all, yet some shady guy who is famous assistant of NATO and American and Baltic special services, who is gathering an illegal database of Putin's supporters in Finland and who is basically committing crimes. Also, unfortunately, my contact information was disclosed at these articles, and that then taught me an important lesson. I understood how disinformation is being used not just to destabilize, but also to organize, mobilize attacks against individual people, as well as mobilize real people into hatred. Because as soon as these articles were posted, I started to receive very angry messages, angry phone calls from around Russian-speaking world. For example, from Ukraine, from Kazakhstan, from elsewhere where people were reading and believing this fake news, they became agitated and started to approach me. Also, for example, I received a phone call from Ukraine where there's only the sound of a shooting gun. So people were telling me that I should go to jail because I am committing crimes against Russians. And of course, none of those people checked the original article in which I only researched information about anonymous trolls, not real people. So also in 2015, we went with film crew and Russian stringer to the actual troll factory. And we made English language stories, and we found out really important information, such as the troll factory was actually recruiting. They were not recruiting propaganda trolls, yet they were recruiting people who can write material and news online in 12-hour shifts, also during nighttime. And those people should know English language. And we called to the recruiter and we asked, what kind of information do you want me to put online if I become selected? And they said political. So already back in 2015, there was an ongoing international political influence operation. As soon as we published articles, new attacks started against me and my colleague who was with me there. Of course, these articles also spread around social media, and people were really eagerly quoting them, and diplomatic people and security people were quoting them because it was a new phenomenon. So, but for example, someone used Facebook events. You know, this feature on Facebook in which you normally, you know, invite people to, you know, birthday parties and other nice places. So in this case, it was being used to invite people to protest against Yleisradio, the Finnish broadcasting company, because of our troll investigation. And this was just one small example of how what happens in cyberspace does not stay in cyberspace, yet people are being again mobilized into action, into streets, using social media platforms. And 2 years after this, we learned from the Mueller investigation, which was targeting the Russian interference against the American election, the Russian troll factory also organized, using Facebook events, protests promoting Trump and protests attacking each other on US soil. Also, a harassment campaign went on, and someone pretended to be my father, who had been dead for 20 years, and told that he is alive and watching me. So I understood at this point that there is no limit in my harassment. Also, YouTube videos with song, like a studio quality song, and an actress playing me and pretending as some kind of NATO troll, US propaganda troll, was being put up. And also you can see on the right corner of the screenshot, you can see sponsored. It says sponsoroid, which is sponsored in Finnish, which meant that someone was paying money to show this material to even more bigger audiences. Also, this method was later being found to use in the US elections, in which Russian trolls touched 126 million Americans, trying to put Trump as the president of the United States. Here also a fake news campaign against me in Finland started, which is still ongoing. Until today, there are over 300 smearing articles which show me in this light. You can imagine what kind of reader reactions I get. So people actually approach me after, these are headlines of the fake news that has been published about me. When the readers read this, they become agitated, they become angry because they feel that this is true, and then they attack me, sending messenger messages, phone calls, telling me that they will kill me and that I'm a threat to Finnish national security. So because of all this, the Finnish police has estimated that I face the threat of impulsive violence if I'm in the wrong place in the wrong time, because so many people are being brainwashed to hate me. Also, I'm being physically followed when I give presentations, and also some international examples. Whenever I go into publicity and tell about Russian interference techniques, I become targeted by Russian fake news sites, also international ones. And here, just to show you, again, real life examples, after I managed to get some of these harassers into court, new operations were targeted and are still targeted against not just me, but against the police and well, our whole justice system. So people are being agitated to come to the courthouse and to harass me and to harass real journalists who are there, and also take journalists' seats in the actual trial, so that actual journalists don't even fit in. Yet all these fake news spreaders and agitators fit in. So this is also how it is. And also, of course, important is to know where this is coming from. The person who put the original fake information about me to the Russian fake media, from where it then came to Finnish information space and also wider, he is a Finnish citizen who works in Moscow in Russian Institute of Strategic Studies, which is basically President Putin's organization, whose task it is to, according to one scientist who has been investigating Russian security services, is to be Russian security services PR wing. And news agency Reuters actually found in 2017 that it was Risi who actually originally designed the whole hacking and trolling fake news campaign against the US elections 2016. And then it was the troll factories who then implemented the plan. So that's why I've been smeared, and this is what we are seeing in so many other countries as well. These troll attacks, agitating real people, agitating far right, and agitating all types of societal movements that cause destabilization. And we can discuss more about those later, but here is just what's happening internationally at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So there are many questions we would like to ask for sure. Let's hear something from Jędrzej now. What's your story and how it's related to trust and media?
Hello everyone. Yeah, but if it's okay, before I start, I wanted to ask, because the story Jessica just told was very moving for me. So before I start, I feel like I need to ask just one question. Are you okay at the moment? And because I cannot imagine even the emotional toll. So before I go on with my project, I just wanted to ask, how are you today?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot. I am good. I am really good. And I have published a book and it's being translated into many languages, and I take these people to court and I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, that's a huge relief. Okay, yeah, I can tell you a story about my project or our project, which is, I guess, or I hope, a bit more optimistic. It's a story about something that works out, and the problem we aim to tackle is the problem of polarization. We have a problem with dialogue in Poland, and even bigger problem with dialogue about Poland. Political sphere is very much polarized. Public sphere is polarized. Media, you have, well, the story of polarization, I guess I don't need to go on and on about that, because it's a sort of similar story around the world right now, I guess. But for me as a journalist, I was really frustrated that it's really difficult to go out of this echo chamber or the social media bubble. I felt that when I went into journalism, I had this idealistic kind of view that by writing and by engaging in journalism, you can talk with other people, you can hear other people, you can learn about different perspectives. And that wasn't my experience at all. My experience was the journalism, and I worked mainly in online publishing. I would write about economics, politics. Sometimes I would comment on European affairs, international economics, and I felt like it's not a dialogue at all. It's a monologue, and for worse, it's an internal monologue of my own social circle. I used to do freelance work for different medias, but my Most often I would write for a leftist magazine called Krytyka Polityczna, Political Critique. For some time I worked as an editor of international edition of Political Critique. And every time I would write something for them, you know, as probably, I guess, most of you or all of you are journalists, so probably you know the experience that you're expected when you write something, you're expected to promote your writing, your pieces on social media. I'm not a big Facebook user, but I would do that as well. So I'd publish my piece on Facebook, and I could see that the likes are coming so fast. It wasn't possible. It wasn't possible for the readers to read before liking, right? They must have liked the piece just before they knew, probably they knew me, or they knew the medium, they liked the lead, the title. And I felt like if I get these pats on the back just for, I don't know, just for a nice title, or it's not a real dialogue, right? People are patting me on the back even though they don't know what I'm about to say. And I felt that it's not, I talked with my friends and other journalists, and I felt it's not only my experience. And it's getting bigger and bigger problem that when I write only for the people who are already convinced by my arguments from the outset. And when I read, it's difficult to read other points of view, other vantage points. It's difficult. It takes effort to engage with people who have different views than you. So the idea that came to me was it's a very simple idea, and I guess it's easy to reproduce in other places as well. I quit Krytyka Polityczna to be more independent. I approached four other ideas. I approached 4 other media outlets with different political outlooks. So we had Krytyka Polityczna was leftist, so I approached a liberal one, a conservative one, Republican one, and sort of Catholic leftist one. So these were the 5 magazines, and we engaged this basically a cross-publishing project. Every few weeks, we pick a topic, from education to migration policy, from gender politics to labor markets, from division between religion or church and state to climate. Right? We pick a topic, and then every magazine writes a piece on that topic, and then on one day, each and every magazine publish online all 5 pieces. So in effect, if you're a reader of only one of these sites, let's say that your conservative values or Republican values are close to your heart, and you don't like to read liberal medium or leftist one, still, on your favorite medium, on your favorite magazine, on your favorite site, you're gonna see other voices on the same subject. If, on the other hand, you're more left-leaning, you're gonna be asked to read the voice from the right wing, or the more conservative approach to the subject. So that's what changed for the reader. And for journalists, what changes is that you have to write in a different way if you know that you're going to reach audience that's not going to pat you on the back just for being there, right? You need to write in a different way. You need to think in a different way. You need to structure your argument in a different way if you know that you're going to reach people who may not necessarily agree with you from the outset. It's more difficult, I guess, task, and more ambitious. But also, I must say that from the very beginning, journalists from all 5 magazines were enthusiastic about that, and were eager to join this kind of debate, because I guess everyone, conservatives and leftists, liberals and Republicans, were kind of fed up with the fact that it's, you write only for your own friends, you write only for the people who already agree with you, and it's, well, that's not very interesting intellectually. So that's the problem. That's the project. The project is called Spięcie, which is, usually I translate that into short circuit, but as Zuzia said, it has a couple of meanings. It's clipping things together, it's argument, it's tension, it's short circuit as well, like electrical short circuit. And I can tell you, maybe just before we move on, 2 more things about the little bit of the philosophy of the debate we have. The aim is not to have a final conclusion or consensus, right? It's not about having this fruitful dialogue after which we find out that, oh, we all agree about climate change, or we all agree about migration. No, we have differences, right? In every society, you have differences. And it's okay as long as you have a space in which you can find out what are the real differences and what are just imagined ones. And when you can try to engage in a dialogue and get to know the other perspective, and have that basic trust that even though you may disagree on a specific issue, your care for the common good is the same on all sides, right? Just the fact that someone disagrees with you on education policy or climate policy doesn't mean that they are dishonest. It just means that they have different views. And when you engage in an honest debate, you can learn why intelligent people, right, smart people, reached different conclusions than you did. And by doing that, you learn something. For me, it's a learning experience. You learn something about the world. And this is like on a very basic level, every person in the world, right? We can only view the world from our own perspective. And fruitful dialogue is when I learn that I look at this one thing from my perspective, and if you're gonna tell me how does it look from yours, I'm gonna learn something more about the world, like with the perhaps good example or metaphor. I don't know, is it an example or metaphor? If I can propose you this experience, this exercise. If you just let's put out a finger in front of you, and if you look at this finger with one eye closed and then the other eye closed, it's gonna move. You can try that now if you want. And what your brain does is, when you combine these 2 perspectives, depth comes into place. That's called parallax view. If you're able to look at the world, if it's a finger, it may be a finger, it may be climate change policy. If you're able to look at things with from many perspectives, it brings you depth. It doesn't mean that all perspectives are equally fine to you, right? We disagree all the time in this project, and I guess we're gonna have the next issue is gonna be about political correctness and limits of free speech, and it's gonna be a huge disagreement from what I know. We're gonna argue a lot there. But to have a space in which we can disagree and still respect each other and still respect our place at the table and the fact that we all live in the same country, I guess it's important to have this. And yeah, maybe I should shut up now.
Thank you, Jędrzej, for the first introduction. And there is an in-chat question from Lucia Pashkova, and she's asking about whether you have some data about people, whether how many people outside your usual circles reading the articles when it is on their favorite pages, whether there is some data, real information about the numbers.
So usually not all 5 pieces are read to the same extent, because that's, to be honest, that's really a lot, right? To read 5 pieces about education or retirement reform, that's a lot. So it's expectable that not all of them are going to be read to the same extent. Every time we have, it's structured in a way that we have 1 proposal and then 4 responses to that proposal. So what you get in terms of response and readership is that usually what's read is the 1 proposal, which may be from the different magazine that you're used to reading, and then people read the response of their own medium and
their favorite one.
Yeah, their favorite response and maybe 1 other.
Okay.
So that's the usual. So 2 or 3 out of 5 are read, but it's a different, every time it's a different set.
Okay, thank you. Jessica wants to ask something.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add to that. In Yle, we do a lot of audience research all the time, and we really study the people who are, reading our stuff, who are watching our stuff. And I have a really vivid example with my experience with Yle Kioski. Yle Kioski, we started in 2015, and with that project, we wanted to touch the people who normally just don't want to have anything to do with us, as in they are not interested in any of our news production. And they have been identified. They were under 35-year-old people and mostly women. So we got the task, the mission on how to get to these people. And we started a project which was only social media based, called Yle Kioski. And first we made some pieces to television and also some pieces to regular online platforms, but then it transferred. We only started to produce journalism in social media channels. So basically we started from 0, and nowadays, so 5 years later, Yle Kioski has amazing followership. I mean, I think their Facebook site has hundreds of thousands of people, and they are massively shared, massively read, and we have definitely managed to touch the people who we wanted to. Mm-hmm. And even as part of that, our audience research people started these meetings with like test groups of our audiences. and we would meet with them, and they would give us their ideas of what they're missing, why they are not looking at Yle content, why they're not interested, what type of content they are interested. And from there, we took ideas and we developed our journalism.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Before I give space to other questions, I would come back to the main issue of our conference, and it is trust. And of course, we speak a lot about polarization in this conference, and we mean by polarization the situation when there is a conflict, but not just usual conflict, the conflict where people are really like getting far away from the center, and there is like black and white situation, and the two parties don't discuss with each other anymore. And my question is about depolarization, whether it is possible at all for media to become agents of depolarization, because we know that media, of course, they are struggling for readers. So they have to bring sharp stories, they have to bring emotions, they have to really bring like very, very juicy emotional arguments. And in general, we can think that, okay, this is everything which actually accelerates or may accelerate the polarization. So yeah, you both brought examples how to maybe get to another audience, but still there is this question, how media can get people more together and depolarize these extreme views on certain, maybe especially value-based issues like identity, climate, or many other things we are dealing with. So I don't know who wants to start. Jessica?
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. I think this is a very philosophical question at the core, because journalism doesn't have this mission of depolarization. Journalism has the mission of providing information and opinions, and sometimes those might cause some polarization. But when we get to the bottom of that, seriously, there's a lot of concrete things that media and journalists can and are actually already doing to depolarize. First is not to follow any political guidelines or any politicians or any political ideologies in your news reporting. Obviously, we can see what's happening in the United States, which I guess is one of the most polarized media environments at the moment. So there, people's trust is eroding because they feel, and rightly so, that their medias are mostly promoting political views of one or the other main party. So that's one thing, to not to politize what you're doing. Also, just concrete examples from Yle Kioski. What we have done, for example, is that we have brought different members of different interest groups, also some of them very extremist, and we have put them together and we have discussed with them very, very politely, very, very in a human interest way, and to give them also not just the extremists but also the more moderate parties the platform, so that the watchers and readers can then make up their mind. But always it is important to give background. Whenever journalist wants to make this hot headline that gets a lot of clicks and thus get more readership, also we need to give the background. For example, if we are reporting about some extremist politicians' views or ideas, we need to give the background. That's one thing, not just to put out the flashy headline of what the extremist has again said, but also to give background. So that's one thing. And then of course we have journalistic standards, journalistic ethics, and in none of those it says that we should add on polarization also. So if it's written inside journalists' passion, internal mission to give out these very provocative headlines, then at least the Finnish experience shows toning it down, keeping the language neutral is one way.
Super, thank you very much, Jędrzej. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you maybe on a very simple and practical level how we established trust between these 5 magazines and people who, some of them didn't know each other. They knew each other only as political opponents, because all 5 magazines, they were highly engaged on some sort of they were highly entrenched on a political spectrum somewhere. So these were not neutral or Reuters type news agencies. These are political and sometimes partisan media outlets. So 2 things that I think helped us to establish trust was, first, meeting face to face. So it was really important, and I believe it was crucial to the success of this project, that before we even started to talk about this, first meeting I took with every editor-in-chief or with every editor-in-chief basically was face to face. I would reach out to get email address or telephone number, but I didn't want to speak over the phone or write an email. With just, let's meet face to face, because then you can, it just, our monkey brains, they work like this, right? When you see another person, it's easier to decide whether you want to trust them or not, right? This is how we as mammals, we as animals, it's easier for us to make that decision. And sometimes you see someone and what they wrote seems great, but you see someone and it just, something doesn't add up, and you don't want to go into a project with them, right? So meeting face to face was crucial. Although it's, for me as an introvert, it's easier to write something, send a message, send a text. It was really important to have these meetings in person. And second thing was simply time. At first, when we established this project Spięcia, it's no accident that the first issue we printed was on education. And next was, I guess, on some legal issue, and next was on the social security system. So these things that are very important, but they're not that emotional as separation of church and state or gender politics. So it took time for us to establish trust, and I guess the mechanism there was that, you know, you work together with other people, so some fuck ups happen and not everything is great all the time, but when you see that something breaks and then the people, they want to make it work, so there's a small fuck up with a deadline or there's some misunderstanding, and then people try to overcome this difficulty, and they say, okay, maybe it was my fault, or no, we should talk because what you did was really not fine with us, but let's talk about that and let's go on. Let's not resign from the project altogether. And I guess it's the mechanism we all know from our personal relationships, right? When you are in a friendship and something happens and you either say, okay, so I don't want to have anything to do with this person anymore, or you are able to argue and then and then you establish greater trust, because you know that people care for each other.
Wonderful.
Enough to go into that. So this is one thing, and the other about social media and trust. I wanted to add another aspect of this whole thing, because I think there is nothing inherent in journalism that's polarizing. I think that the biggest agent or the biggest reason for polarization is the way social media works right now, and the fact that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that, their algorithms are built in a way that's very polarizing. And I don't want to get into the reasons for that and the technicalities of that, but my understanding of social media is that it's a polarizing machine for business reasons mainly. So I guess on a social and political level, it's a task for us to fight against this, and to find a way in which we're gonna, I don't know, regulate social media or do something with social media so they're not destructive for the tissue of society. And for projects to be more practical, for projects like ours, the thing we decide to do is we don't have social media presence. There is no spięcie fan page. There is no spięcie profile, because the intuition was that if we set up another profile, another social media presence, after a few weeks, after a few months, what we are gonna get is the algorithm's gonna hijack what we do, right? And you're gonna have another social media bubble, spięcie social media bubble, when only people who like this sort of thing are gonna see this content. And we don't want that, right? So we have spięcie content as it circulates through other social media channels, but we don't have I hope that for Facebook, we are sort of invisible.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jędrzej. We will get back to social media. I hope we'll have time for that. But Jessica wanted to add something while you were speaking.
Yes, definitely. From my point of view, the worst polarization and the worst erosion of trust at the moment, also internationally, are the attacks against journalists and the attacks against media in general. I recently read research by UNESCO, the UN agency, the culture agency, whose job it is to protect journalists and support journalism all around. And they also identified that the latest trend is that the anti-media rhetorics are on the rise. And we are now being blamed to be fake news, or we are being blamed to be political actors, which is so crazy. And we are blamed to be some kind of parties in some kind of cultural war. So we have to dissolve this, because this is an issue, and this is the topic. The bad actors are creating these conspiracy theories, because basically that's what they are. Conspiracy theories that are framing us who are neutral and who are doing their job, and they are framing us with their words and their concepts. So that requires a little bit of activity from our part as well. So we need to explain, we need to regain the trust of these audiences who are being brainwashed to believe something that is obviously not true. For example, that I am NATO agent, or that Yleisradio is agent of our prime minister, or agent of some Western propaganda. We also need to step up and say, sometimes, not all the time, because we don't have to explain ourselves, but we need to explain ourselves to the parts of the audience who they just believe this is true, because this is what they have been told for such a long time. So we lose those audiences if we do not rebuild their trust, and we need to do it.
Okay, this is very interesting point, but it leads to my other question, because also there was in chat Lucia Pashkova put some time ago a question about, for Jędrzej actually, how did you select the media for your website, and whether conspiracy media, obviously they are not there, and why they are not there, and so on. But I would put another hesitation or question up to that even, you know, when we don't speak only about social media or conspiracy media, even mainstream normal media, while you are mostly now presenting your content through the internet, we have this phenomenon of, we call it like fragmentation of truth. And this is something what Jędrzej started with, that the people are liking before reading, and that people read just the title or maybe the paragraphs or the first lines. And when you want to build argument, you need to catch people's attention until the end of the article, or somehow to elaborate on something. And this is something very difficult in these days, because some time before, you had the magazine, you had the physical thing, and you read the magazine drinking your coffee from the beginning to the end. And now the consuming of news, of any type of information, is very different. People are clicking and jumping, and nothing is really, you don't have this stability, or you are not sure that people will read really the argument until the end. So what we can do with this? I mean, is it really like, yes, we will get out of social media, ignore the social media, or how to live with this? Jessica?
Oh, yes. Oh, we go to social media and we do it really well. And we also become better journalists, and we write more catchy stories. We write more narrative stories. We try different methods of writing and content production. We produce memes. And we also, it all starts with acceptance that part of the audience, they don't read our stuff to the end. Majority of the audience actually stops viewing our videos after 3 seconds it starts playing on their screen on social media, because they have more important things in their lives. So we have to accept that, but then in the limits that we have, we do our best, and we take care that we use our best storytelling skills, and also produce those stories to be as attentive as possible, and still being true. So I think it's up to us, and I think this is a challenge that journalists, I think this is actually a question which journalists often older than myself, who are not so, you know, well prepared for social media and how it's like, often ask, because they still would like to have this, you know, you showed the printed magazine, and you love the idea, we all love the idea that person reads our every beautiful word that is printed in the beautiful magazine. But that world is, you know, already gone. So now we have these rules, and these rules are quite heavy, and we just have to accept those rules and play with them.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Jędrzej?
I don't know. I think that I'm a bit more rebellious than Jessica. On the one hand, I totally agree with you that we have to accept the rules right now and try to play by them, to be as efficient as possible, and to do our jobs as best as possible. And on the other hand, I think that, you know, internet is a really new invention, and we are yet to find maybe just new medium. I think that we are yet to find a way to communicate with people in the age of internet and in the age of constant connectedness, and we have to experiment, or because what we have right now is not enough for me. So the playing field is not level. And so on the one hand, I agree with you that right now we have to engage with what we have, but also I think that there is there should be some space for new experiments and coming up with completely new formats. And the technology is great because it allows for so much that just wasn't possible 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or even 5 years ago. And we just have to be creative, and 9 out of 10 new ideas will be just bullshit, but I hope that we're gonna find some new ways to connect with readers. So I agree with you, but I'm more idealistic or naive, perhaps.
Okay, maybe this is the point I would like to give the space also to the audience. So please, if you want to ask something or even comment, please raise your hands any way you can, electronically or manually, and tell us what you think. Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. As a co-host, I can't raise the little blue hand. Thank you, Jessica and Jędrzej, for sharing your thoughts and stories. You've touched on many things that I wanted to ask, but I still would like to ask Jessica one question that is related to trust, because it was very easy for me to find information about you online, obviously, even your email address. So, you know, I just dropped you an email about this conference. And how, you know, we haven't met in person before, and I guess you've never heard about PDCS before the email. I have met Jędrzej in person in Warsaw, thanks to Tadeusz, who is also here. Hello. So there was some connection with Jędrzej before, but what made you to trust my email? What made you to respond to it? Especially because with your line of work and all this information about you, you are probably bombarded with all kinds of things. So what sort of set us apart from those that are not genuine? You know, and that's a maybe more general question: how we trust each other in the online world when we cannot meet, which is in this pandemic, is something that we have to face right now. 2 years ago, we ran this conference dedicated to face-to-face. That was the main topic, because we thought that that's the best possible solutions and interventions for depolarization.
That's an excellent point. Thank you so much. I just generally trust people. You know, as long as they are trustable, I trust them. Of course, I have had phases during my journalistic career, especially in the recent 6 years, that I have just completely hid myself or tried to hid myself. But I have all the time said yes to, you know, proper professional requests to speak in a panel or conference as yours. So it's a natural thing for me, and I have said yes to so many conferences before, and I can really tell whether it's proper or not. I don't think I have never, you know, gone into such a trap that I would have started to share emails or exchange emails with some troll or some harassers. Maybe in the beginning I did, but I didn't care about it because it's okay. They can do whatever they want with my emails, and I don't put anything too personal in the emails anyway. So it's professional. So if you would have posted it online with some trashy headlines, you know, it would have been just fine also.
You're used to it, I guess.
Okay, some other point. Lucia Pashkova.
I have a lot of questions. Thank you both for sharing. I wanted to ask one or two things, Jessica, and one more thing to Jędrzej. Jessica, I was wondering when, because the topic was depolarization, and you already mentioned some of the ways, which one of them was to bring the background, even if you're writing about something that you disagree with. Is there something more? Because like when you were talking about this concept of, I don't remember the name of the, for the-
Kioski.
Yeah.
Kiosk, yeah.
So, you know, you are preparing specific content for specific target audience, which doesn't like your normal way, which is basically what is happening on Facebook, which is making them polarized, you know?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you deal with this? Like, do you bring the topics that you normally bring within your radio also to this, packed in a different thing, or it's completely different?
No, that's excellent questions. Yeah, it's completely different. We called it in the beginning news. It's a really old-fashioned term, news 2.0, but we realized that we're actually doing something like news 16.0. And just some examples. Nowadays, Yle Kioski makes small 2-minute long funny comic pieces, which normally don't have anything to do with news. They're just funny, they're interesting, they bring audience to our site, and they keep the audience at our site on Facebook. So also it's memes about some news content, it's Snapchat videos of news content. It's mostly about presence and being available and discussing and talking to these people who would rather than use their time with some, I don't know, Russian troll content or whatever, you know, someone else's cute photos of kittens if we weren't there. So it's kind of like this fast food in a certain way, but still there is the line, the principles of Yleisradio, which are that we have to serve everyone, you know, equally, and that we want to have the human rights to prosper, and we have different types of things that we have to go by according to the Finnish law of Yleisradio. So this is actually even according to the law, we have to deal with as many Finnish people as possible, also the special groups. So this is one way that we are actually doing our legal job.
Thank you. And Jędrzej, I wanted to ask you, you know, because we also are trying to think about how to reach a larger audience. And usually, let's say, if we are talking, let's say, about human rights topics, those people who already are on the boat, they read it, the others don't read it. So, you know, like how to pack it and stuff like that. That's why I was also asking, like, whether it's read, even if it's, you know, if it's branded the name of your magazine or news, if it's branded, if they read it, even if it's on a different website. And my question is whether you ever try to think about, you know, let's say, to bring it without the name of the author or the source, so that the people actually would guess, you know, like who wrote it.
Well, we don't do that. However, often people don't notice that the piece they're reading is part of the project. So you can read these comments where a conservative reader is gonna read a leftist piece on their favorite site, and they're going crazy. How come you publish this thing? It's crazy. And then some people are gonna answer there. You see, this is this project. It's a whole thing that they want to talk to each other, despite the fact that they're different. So I don't know the numbers because it's difficult to tell, but at least some portion of the readers they don't know when they engage with the content, they don't notice that it's part of this project. And it's a funny thing that before, I don't know whether it's funny, but before we started, I thought that we're gonna encounter a lot of pushback from the readers, because of these strong identities and polarization, and you're gonna have all those people who are gonna say, how can you talk with these fascists, or how can you talk with these and work with the Stalinists? And at the beginning, you did have these comments, like under each piece on Facebook, someone would write just this: how can you publish the Stalinist on our true Polish medium, or the other way around? And for every comment like this, you'd immediately get 5, 6, 7 people responding, this comment is a proof that we need this project. So I think that I didn't expect that. I expect the pushback, but I didn't expect that readers would defend this project in this way. So for me, the conclusion from that was that the media landscape is polarized to the extent that is not fine with people themselves. Like the environment is polarized more than people are, and readers perhaps are looking for places where they can engage in this sort of old-fashioned debate, where they can see multiple points of view and make up their own mind, because they're intelligent people, so they don't need to be told what they need to think all the time. But it's not provided very well for them at the moment. So the fact that the media are so polarized doesn't mean that it's because people want that, right? It's not an expression of people's preferences, so to say.
Isn't it also what Jessica was saying, that one of the ways how to depolarize is not to politicize, or I don't know how you said it exactly, but basically that these kind of formats would bring this? Because I'm just imagining, if you said, Jessica, that you had 90% trust in your radio, that means that either 90% of the people are pursued it, that all of, I cannot imagine how it happens. That would be very interesting to speak over in the coffee, if you will be able to tell us. But isn't then is the right format then that the medium is bringing the opinions on from different angles, or what is the trick in it? And this is what is happening also in this species.
Okay, Jessica.
Yes, I'm happy to stay with the coffee break if there is one right after this panel. So I'm really happy to discuss more, but it's also partly mystery to ourselves. Why is it so high? One thing that has to give as an explanation is that in Finland, as we have so little corruption, at least researched, proven corruption, and we have quite a good society, so generally audiences and great populations trust into institutions are super high. Like, this isn't only media, but this is also other, such as our defense forces, our president, Finnish people like to trust. So that's one thing, but it's only one explanation, because some other medias are highly less trusted than Yleisradio. And part of it is what you said yourself, that we don't take sides. We provide platform for different political actors to present themselves and then also we provide background. But of course, this is only my gut feeling. I feel that part of the high trust is also familiarity, because we serve a majority of Finnish population. We have radio, TV, online news, social media, and we start serving them already as kids because they look at kids shows from our channel. So that must also play a part. But also, when we have had some kind of scandals around, like real scandals around our newsroom, then we have made some self-reflection, and then we have started new practices, how we can show the audience what we are doing and with which ethical guidelines, with which ethical and legal guidelines also. So we are trying to tell, and we are really actively participating in this dialogue with the population. One part of the population, which is the part that just believes that we are all Illuminati or something, that is yet work under construction. So I have proposed some ideas how we could reach out to these people, but it doesn't seem to be the most pleasant job for many journalists. So I believe it will be me again who will be doing this dialogue with the extremists. But it's okay, I like it. I really like it. And I believe that these populations, they are not, nasty, or they are not worse people, or, they are just misguided. So they probably have other issues in their life as well, and they are just then pouring their anxiety on our part, because that's what anxious people do. So then I think it's one of my future mission to discuss with these people and also ask them, how do you want to be heard? How do you feel that you should be heard also? And that I am sorry, I'm sure we haven't heard you or your problems enough.
Thank you, Jessica. Who wants to comment or ask? Lucas.
Yes, I was going to ask something that Jessica already almost addressed, because as a follow-up to the previous session that we had in a panel called Radical Trust, a Danish Muslim politician, Özlem Cekic, spoke about how it is to meet the very people who hate you, So it's slightly different to what Jędrzej is saying, that meeting the people with differing opinions or values is a bit more extreme. It's those that send you the hate mail and that really hate you. I don't know if you've done that already, Jessica. If you considered meeting some of these people, not only in the court but in person for a coffee and talk to them. If yes, I would like to hear that story. But also Özlem Cekic, she encouraged us, or she gave us a challenge to kind of like to each of us to meet such person, at least one such person, and see how it works for us. So I thought that's an interesting challenge, but maybe you also have some stories like that.
I think that's a brilliant challenge. I'm happy that he gave you that. I recommend it. I can tell you one example. In the beginning, when my harassment started, these Russian propaganda workers, like people with their real names and faces, in cooperation with anonymous trolls and some political activists, they built up a new Facebook group called Russian Troll Army in Finnish. And in that group, they started to manipulate people into thinking that Yle is illegal, I am NATO troll, and they also targeted for very horrible, I'm going to kill you, hate speech. And then they said this is all part of normal freedom of speech. So I was looking at that group in the beginning, 2014, when it started, and I noticed some interesting figures. For example, one of the administrators of the group, who was a secret name, and then one really active person. I contacted them both and I asked, can we meet over a cup of coffee? I can see we have some disagreements, but I would like to speak with you. And the administrator of the group didn't want to meet me. Instead, he tried to blackmail me that if I apologize for my story, then they will stop discussing about me in the group. So that was that. And then the other person, I actually invited, I found out, she told me who she really was. She was leftist, like this far leftist political activist, single mom who had been radicalized. And I invited her over to Yleisradio, and we had coffee, and she told me about her life, and she told me that she doesn't believe in Western propaganda, and she believes Yle is part of this propaganda conspiracy. And she was very anti-America, and she thought Yle is part of pro-America propaganda. And she also told that she wants to go to Syria to fight. So this is what happened in my meetings with. So then I thought, now I don't have time for this. Now I know enough. So, but of course, I have also met these professionals in court. But that's just like mayhem. That's just like complete mental abuse and mental violence, and that's something I really don't recommend, because they get really angry when they go to court, and then they attack with full force, having group of supporters. So then you better have already a good lawyer or two.
Thank you very much. Are there some other comments, questions, thoughts you would like to share? Go ahead, people who did not ask yet. Okay, if nobody, I would like to ask Jessica, you partly already touched this as well, but what exactly helps you when, I mean, you are under attack, you are getting violent messages and things like this, and still you are saying that you trust people? This is, of course, very full. I mean, I appreciate it very much. But what is it? Is it like support from your colleagues, or is it the family, or is it something else? What helps you in this difficult situation that sometimes you really feel like you are under threat and under a real danger, not psychological danger? How you, from where there is this force in you, in yourself?
I started since almost day one. I started to share information about what's happening to me after my investigation. I did it on social media, and then I started to receive a lot of support, a lot of advice from some security people, a lot of also messages from people who had gone something similar. But also, most importantly, I started to receive messages from general audience who phoned me, not because of my original story, but because I was sharing what was happening to me after my story went out. And they said that I'm doing a great job, and thank you so much for telling about these Russian trolls. I never heard about it before. I think your job is super important. Please keep on doing it. So that's where it all comes from. Because the general audience is the population that I'm serving, and they have the right to know about these Russian trolls, so I have the right to tell about them to them. So I saw it as a human rights thing. So I have every right to do my job. I love my job. I became Russia expert, not by chance, but because I wanted to. And now some extremists just, I just have this feeling, it's inner feeling inside that I'm doing the right thing, and this is needed in the society. And then some people just have a really crappy job of, sending some horrible fake news about me all over the world. So it's just there. I just try to take it professionally, because I try not to take this a personal problem, because this is more like a problem of my employer, because this is basically attack because of my work. It's not because of me personally. So then it should be also addressed professionally. So basically support from colleagues and from general audience. But also I did have to move abroad for a couple of years because the harassment and threats were too much to handle in 2016. So I lived abroad for a couple of years to be able to finalize my book. And then, of course, I also have robust protection, so that also helps.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask, even if I asked before?
Yes, of course.
I think very interesting what you said, Jessica, but also it would be interesting to hear your opinion, Jędrzej, about that, because we are just preparing an event where there will be the mixture of journalists and business people, politicians, NGO people, and educational. And we are talking about where are the limits of trust, and where are, you know, let's say, where are the barrier which stops us from communication or cooperation, or what are the, you know, like, it would be nice to know where are the limits so that we can move within these limits, but then, you know, cooperate within the scale which is possible. And I find it very interesting what you said about, you know, being transparent about the ethical codex that you are working with and improving it, because I think that this is extremely missing when I look even on the Slovak journalism. Basically, even if I'm, you know, supporting media, I don't actually know what is their ethical codex exactly and where is the scale they are moving in. And I think, yeah, this would be very good topic to explore, maybe by you more deeper, both of you.
Definitely, yeah. Do you think it should be done in the coffee break? Because this is quite a big topic, and I also would like to hear more about your project.
Okay, of course you can meet in coffee break. We still have something like 2 minutes for both of you to say something, I don't know, some last words for this round. Just some thoughts maybe that appeared right now. And we will close up this session. And if you like, those of you who would like to meet in coffee break, the link is in the chat. So you can get there, and there is a possibility to mix the groups around with different people. So you can continue if you like. Take your lunch and pretend that we are in real conference, in real face-to-face situation. Okay, so I would now give the floor to Jędrzej and Jessica for some closing thoughts.
Do you want to go? Yeah, I should go first. Okay. Well, I feel that maybe I should just give one disclaimer that these 5 magazines, you know, they're not mainstream media. Right now we have some cooperation with the second biggest online portal in Poland, and we're trying to establish cooperation with some radio station that's pretty mainstream. But these 5 magazines, we're not, like, we didn't change the media landscape in Poland. These are 5 pretty niche magazines. So it's small to medium scale. It's not, you know, because I don't want to blow out of proportions this project of ours.
But
and
may I just ask additional? I think they are quite intellectual and quite influential politically.
Yes, they're politically, they're influential. They are quite intellectual, but and they're not very mainstream. Together, they have probably a couple million unique users monthly in a country of 40 million.
But so, important people are reading them.
Yeah, so it's small to medium scale. So just so you know the proportions we're talking about. And the second thing, I won't be able to join the coffee break right now, but if anyone wants to contact me, so I'd love to hear from you about your projects and what you do. So I'd be happy to have some conversation with you, but right now I need to run because I work as a teacher in high school as well. That's my primary occupation right now, and I need to run there. So feel free to contact me on Facebook or by email, and we can always Skype. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to join the coffee break right now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Jędrzej. Jessica?
Thank you. Really, just quickly, I would like to say that journalism is the best profession in the world, and I wish you all so much success in your projects. And if you ever become harassed, you can email me and I can help you with that. So take care and stay safe.
That's wonderful ending. And okay, I'm just repeating the invitation for coffee break. Thank you very much, everybody, for your reactions, your smiles, your questions, and everything that you have been with us. And continue being with us on the next sessions. You select what you like from the agenda, and see you either in coffee break or in the afternoon sessions. So bye-bye. Take care.